My beloved child, pause here for a moment, because what is reaching you right now did not arrive by accident. There is something waiting inside these words that your spirit has already felt, even before your mind understood it. Someone was closer than you knew. Someone had already imagined a future with you. Someone had already held a question in their heart so sacred, so trembling, so life-changing, that even their hands became nervous when they thought about saying it out loud. They were about to propose, not just in passing, not as a fantasy, not as a sweet thought they would forget by morning. No, this had become real inside them. They had begun to picture the moment. They had begun to wonder how your face would look when you realized what they were asking. They had begun to imagine the silence before your answer. They had begun to carry a secret joy so quietly that even the people around them could not fully understand why they had changed. But then, something unexpected was revealed about you, and the moment they learned it, everything inside them stopped. Not because their love disappeared, not because heaven closed the door, not because your destiny was suddenly broken, but because what they discovered about you was deeper than they were prepared to face. And now, beloved, the question that once rested in their heart has become something even greater. Because before a soul can promise forever, it must be able to stand before the truth. You thought you were the one waiting. You thought you were the one wondering. You thought you were the one sitting quietly with unanswered feelings, trying not to hope too loudly, trying not to read meaning into every silence, every delay, every strange shift in their energy. But heaven has been watching both sides, and what I am about to show you is not small. It is not casual. It is not something that can be explained by coincidence. There has been movement around your name. There have been conversations you were not invited into. There have been moments when your person sat alone, looking at nothing, hearing everything their heart had avoided for too long. And in those moments, they were not asking whether they loved you. They already knew that. They were asking whether they were strong enough to love you the way your soul requires. That is where the trembling began. Because your love is not ordinary. Your presence is not simple. Your energy does not allow people to remain halfway awake. You do not merely enter someone's life and blend into the background. No, when heaven places you near someone, something inside them begins to rise, resist, remember, and reveal itself. And that is exactly what happened here. They were preparing for a beautiful moment. They were carrying a decision that looked like love from the outside. But heaven looked deeper. Heaven saw the fear still hidden under their promise. Heaven saw the questions they had not yet asked themselves. Heaven saw the parts of your story they still did not understand. And before they could step forward with a proposal that sounded complete but was not yet spiritually mature, something about you came into the light. It reached them suddenly. A detail, a truth, a memory, a revelation about your past, your strength, your sacrifice, your pain, your standards, or the quiet battles you survived without applause. And when they heard it, they became silent. Not the kind of silence that means rejection. The kind of silence that comes when a person realizes they have been standing at the edge of something holy without knowing how deep it truly was. They had seen your smile, but they had not seen the nights behind it. They had seen your patience, but they had not understood what it cost you. They had seen your calmness, but they did not know how many times you had to rebuild yourself in private. They had seen your light, but they had not known the darkness you walked through without becoming cruel. And when this unexpected truth reached them, it did something no ordinary conversation could have done. It made them see you differently, not less, more. And that is why they stopped. Because sometimes love pauses not because it is weakening, but because it has finally realized the weight of what it is holding. Beloved, you must understand this. There is a difference between someone wanting you and someone being ready for you. Many people can desire the warmth of your presence. Many people can be attracted to your beauty, your kindness, your mystery, your energy, the way your spirit seems to remain soft even after disappointment. But not everyone is prepared to protect what heaven has placed inside you. Not everyone is prepared to honor the quiet story behind your eyes. Not everyone is prepared to love you without trying to reduce you. And the one who was about to propose is now standing inside that realization. They are not only thinking about the future. They are being forced to face the truth of the future they were asking for. Because what they learned about you changed the meaning of forever. Before, they imagined romance. Now, they are seeing responsibility. Before, they imagined a beautiful moment. Now, they are seeing a sacred assignment. Before, they thought the proposal would prove their love. Now, they are realizing that love must become deeper than a question, deeper than a ring, deeper than words spoken while emotions are high. And this is where heaven stepped in. Not to destroy the moment. Not to punish them. Not to embarrass you. But to test the foundation before the house was built. Because a promise made too early can become a prison later. A proposal made without full understanding can become a wound. A yes spoken before truth is known can become a chain around a heart that was meant to be cherished, not contained. So heaven allowed something to be revealed. And the timing was not random. It happened before the proposal for a reason. It happened before they spoke for a reason. It happened before you were pulled into a decision for a reason. Because your heart has already survived enough moments where people loved the idea of you, but did not understand the reality of you. You have already endured people who praised your light but disappeared when they saw your depth. You have already known what it feels like to be chosen in public but misunderstood in private. You have already carried the ache of wondering why people come close only to become afraid of the very soul they once admired. And heaven said, not this time. This time, the truth must arrive first. This time, the foundation must be tested before the vow is spoken. This time, whoever comes toward you must come with open eyes. Not with fantasy. Not with pressure. Not with emotional excitement alone. But with the courage to know you fully and still say, I choose you. That is why this pause matters. That is why this delay is not empty. That is why the silence around them is heavier than you realize. They are processing something that touched a place in them they have kept locked. And strangely, beloved, what they learned about you did not only reveal your truth, it revealed theirs. Because the moment they discovered this unexpected thing about you, something inside them asked, can I love someone who has already survived so much? Then another voice inside them asked, can I become safe enough for someone who has had to be strong for too long? Then another question rose, one they were not prepared for. What if I hurt them the way others did? That question shook them, because they had been thinking about winning your heart, but now they are thinking about not damaging it. And that is a holy shift. Do not mistake it for distance. Do not call it failure too quickly. Do not assume heaven is removing what heaven may actually be refining. There is a sacred difference between delay and denial. Delay says, not while the foundation is unfinished. Denial says, this is not yours. And what is happening here carries the feeling of refinement, not rejection. They were moving toward a moment. Then truth interrupted. And now love is being measured, not by how fast they speak, but by how deeply they transform after knowing what they know. Beloved, I see the part of you that wants to ask, what did they learn? I see the question rising in your chest. I see how your mind begins searching your own life, your own history, your own hidden scars, your own private details, wondering which part reached them, wondering who spoke, wondering what shifted. But listen carefully. The revelation was not meant to shame you. It was not meant to expose you. It was not meant to make you feel watched or judged. It was meant to show them the truth of your value. Because there are parts of your life you have minimized. There are things you survived that you rarely explain. There are losses you carried with such quiet dignity that people assumed they were not heavy. There are moments when you wanted to break, but instead you became gentle. There are betrayals that could have made your heart bitter, but somehow you still believed in love. And someone close to them finally revealed enough of your story for them to realize you are not just someone to be admired. You are someone to be honored. That word matters. Admiration can be shallow. Honor requires maturity. Admiration looks at the surface and says, I like what I see. Honor looks at the soul and says, I understand there is more here than I first knew. And the person who was about to propose has been moved from admiration into confrontation with honor. They can no longer approach you casually. They can no longer treat your heart like an emotional destination they can arrive at whenever they are ready. They can no longer imagine forever with you while remaining unchanged. Your truth has made their love accountable. And now heaven is watching what they do with that accountability. There was a moment after they learned it when they tried to act normal. They tried to continue the day. They tried to answer messages. They tried to speak to people as if nothing had shifted. But inside, something had gone quiet. A picture of you kept returning. Not the version of you they usually carried in their mind. Not just your smile. Not just your voice. Not just the way you make their spirit feel when your name appears or your presence enters a room. This time, they saw the version of you that had endured. The version of you that had been forced to be brave when no one noticed. The version of you that had walked away from things that once mattered. The version of you that still shows kindness even though life gave you many reasons not to. And that vision unsettled them. Because love suddenly became sacred. They realized they could not approach you with half-truths. They realized they could not offer you a future while still hiding from their own past. They realized they could not ask for your yes while carrying uncertainty they had not surrendered. That is why the proposal paused. Not because you became unworthy, because you became even more real. And real love requires more courage than fantasy. Beloved, this is the part heaven wants you to hear slowly. You are not being delayed because you are too much. You are being protected because you are too valuable to be received by someone who has not yet counted the cost. You are not being hidden because you are forgotten. You are being guarded because the next chapter must not repeat the old wound. You are not being punished because someone hesitated. You are being prepared for a love that does not collapse when truth enters the room. There were times you wondered why things seemed close, then suddenly unclear. Why warmth came, then distance. Why signs appeared, then silence. Why someone could look at you with such depth and still not move forward the way your heart expected. But what you did not know is that heaven was not only working on your waiting. Heaven was working on their readiness. And sometimes readiness is not measured by desire. Sometimes readiness is measured by what a person does after they learn the part of your story that requires reverence. Can they stay? Can they grow? Can they humble themselves? Can they stop seeing love as a feeling and begin seeing it as a covenant of care? That is the question now. That is the unseen trial taking place. And beloved, you are not required to chase the answer out of them. You are not required to prove you are worthy of the question they paused. You are not required to explain your pain in a way that makes it easier for them to accept. You are not required to shrink your story so their fear feels comfortable. Let heaven do what only heaven can do. Let truth finish speaking. Let silence reveal what words might hide. Because when someone truly loves you, truth does not make them run forever. It may make them tremble. It may make them think. It may make them confront themselves. It may make them step back long enough to realize the depth of what they almost entered without full awareness. But if the love is appointed, truth will not destroy it. Truth will purify it. This is why you feel something in the air. You may not have known the details, but your spirit sensed the shift. You felt the strange quiet. You felt the energy change. You felt as though something had almost happened, then stopped just before becoming visible. You wondered if you imagined it. You wondered if you were being too sensitive. You wondered if your hope was making patterns out of ordinary things. But no, beloved. Your spirit has been sensing movement behind the veil. There was a near moment. There was a plan. There was an intention. There was a question forming. And then the unexpected truth came. And now everything is suspended in a sacred pause. Do not despise the pause. The pause is where heaven separates emotion from devotion. The pause is where hidden motives surface. The pause is where fear reveals itself before it can become a future wound. The pause is where someone decides whether they want the fantasy of loving you or the responsibility of loving you well. And this person is in that pause now. They are remembering things you said. Small things. Things you probably forgot. A sentence you spoke lightly. A boundary you set quietly. A moment when you changed the subject because the memory behind it was too tender. A look in your eyes when someone mentioned something close to your past. They are putting pieces together. And as they do, their heart is not becoming colder. It is becoming heavier. Heavier with understanding. Heavier with remorse for what they did not notice. Heavier with awe at how much you carried while still showing up with grace. And somewhere in that heaviness, a new form of love is trying to be born. But birth is not gentle from the outside. It can look like silence. It can look like confusion. It can look like someone stepping back. It can look like delay. It can look like the promise vanished. But heaven says, look deeper. Something is being formed. Something is being tested. Something is being weighed. They thought they were preparing to ask you to share a future. Now heaven is asking them whether they can become the kind of future your soul can safely enter. That is a different question. And it has shaken them. Because the truth they learned about you did not only touch their heart. It exposed where they were still immature. It revealed the places where they wanted love without sacrifice. It revealed the parts of them that wanted certainty from you while still offering uncertainty in return. It revealed where they had been romantic in thought but not yet steady in spirit. And beloved, heaven will not let someone build a home with you out of emotion alone. Not after all you have survived. Not after all the nights you asked silently for something real. Not after all the times you gave your heart to situations that only knew how to receive, not protect. This time must be different. And for it to be different, the person coming toward you must face what they are made of before they reach you. That is mercy. Even if it feels confusing. Even if the silence hurts. Even if part of you wishes the proposal had happened before the truth came out, before the pause, before the questions. Heaven sees further. Heaven knows that a beautiful moment without a healed foundation can become sorrow later. Heaven knows that a ring cannot repair what maturity refuses to confront. Heaven knows that words can sound holy while a heart remains unprepared. So heaven interrupted the timing. And when heaven interrupts timing, it is never without purpose. There is a detail you must not miss. They did not discover this truth about you from a place of mockery. They did not hear it as gossip meant to reduce you. Even if the person who spoke did not fully understand the spiritual weight of what they were saying, heaven used the moment. What was meant to sound like information became revelation. What was spoken casually landed deeply. What someone may have mentioned without thinking became a mirror held before their soul. They heard about something you endured, or something you refused, or something you lost, or something you protected, or something you walked away from even though it broke your heart. And in that moment, they realized your softness has history. Your boundaries have reasons. Your silence has meaning. Your independence was not born from pride. Your guardedness was not born from coldness. Your strength was not born from ease. And suddenly, they understood why you do not trust quickly. They understood why you notice small changes in energy. They understood why words matter to you. They understood why inconsistency hurts you more than you admit. They understood why you can forgive, but you do not forget the lesson. They understood why your heart opens slowly, carefully, like a door that remembers every storm that once came through it. And when they understood this, they were pierced, because they saw where they had been careless, maybe not cruel, maybe not intentionally harmful, but careless in ways that mattered, careless with timing, careless with silence, careless with mixed signals, careless with assuming you would always understand, careless with thinking love could be postponed without cost. And now, beloved, they are facing that. This is not small. This is not ordinary. This is the kind of inner reckoning that changes the way a person loves. If they allow it, that is the key. Heaven can reveal. Heaven can stir. Heaven can awaken. But a person must still choose. They must choose humility over pride. They must choose courage over comfort. They must choose truth over performance. They must choose to approach you not as someone trying to secure their own happiness, but as someone willing to protect yours. And this choice is forming in them now, slowly, quietly, with resistance, with longing, with fear, with memories of you interrupting their ordinary moments. They may not have told anyone how deeply this affected them. They may have laughed it off at first. They may have changed the subject. They may have pretended the conversation did not reach them. But later, when they were alone, it came back. Your name came back. Your face came back. The thought of proposing came back. But now it was surrounded by a question they could not escape. Am I truly ready for someone like this? Not someone perfect. Not someone impossible. Someone real. Someone deep. Someone heaven has refined through fire. Someone who needs love with honesty, not games. Someone who has already lost enough time to uncertainty. Someone who needs peace, not performance. And beloved, when they asked that question, heaven listened. Because that question is the doorway. If they answer it with pride, they will delay themselves further. If they answer it with fear, they may step away and call it wisdom when it is actually insecurity. But if they answer it with humility, something powerful will begin. Something that looks different from their original plan. Something less rushed, but more sincere. Something less dramatic, but more holy. Something that does not merely ask for your future, but proves it can be trusted with your heart. You must not interrupt this process by lowering your worth. Do not send desperate energy into the silence. Do not assume you must become easier to love. Do not believe that being deeply understood makes you difficult. The right love will not need you to erase your history. The right love will see your history and become more careful with you. The right love will not punish you for having wounds. It will learn how not to touch them carelessly. The right love will not call your boundaries walls. It will recognize them as doors with sacred locks. The right love will not demand instant access. It will bring consistency until your soul knows it is safe. And this person is being asked by heaven whether they can become that kind of love. That is why everything feels suspended. That is why your spirit may feel both hope and tension. That is why you might feel as if something is approaching but not yet arriving. Because there is a decision happening in the unseen, not only about whether they will propose, but about who they will become before they do. And beloved, this is where your own heart must remain steady. Because when love pauses, old wounds may try to speak. They may whisper, "You are being abandoned again." They may whisper, something about you scared them away. They may whisper, your story is too heavy. They may whisper, if you had been simpler, they would have chosen you faster. But heaven says, do not agree with those voices. Those are not prophecies. Those are echoes. Echoes from places where people failed to value you correctly. Echoes from times when your vulnerability was mishandled. Echoes from moments when someone made you feel like your depth was a burden. But those echoes are not the voice of God. They are not the voice of heaven. They are not the truth of your destiny. You are not too much. You are simply not meant for shallow hands. You are not difficult to love. You are difficult to love falsely. You are not impossible to choose. You are impossible to choose casually. And that is why this moment is so important. Because a casual proposal would have flattered the heart but endangered the soul. A mature proposal will carry weight. It will carry awareness. It will carry a kind of tenderness that says, I know more now, and I still choose you, but I choose you with reverence. That is what heaven is preparing, or revealing the absence of. Either way, beloved, you will not lose. Because if they rise, love becomes safer. And if they refuse to rise, heaven will have shown you before you gave them a deeper yes. That is protection. That is mercy. That is divine timing wearing the disguise of delay. There is another layer you have not seen. When they learned this unexpected thing about you, someone around them noticed their reaction. A pause. A look. A change in their breathing. A sudden seriousness. They may have tried to hide it, but the room felt it. Because the truth touched them too quickly to be concealed. Someone saw that your name had power over them. Someone realized this was not a casual connection. Someone understood, perhaps for the first time, that they were not merely interested in you. They were emotionally tied to you. And this created tension. Because not everyone around them wants this proposal to happen. Not everyone is comfortable with the depth of what they feel for you. Not everyone understands why your presence affects them so strongly. Some people prefer them predictable. Some people prefer them attached to old patterns. Some people prefer them choosing what is convenient, familiar, or approved. But you, beloved, represent something different. You represent awakening. You represent change. You represent a path that requires courage. And when your truth was revealed, it made the connection harder to dismiss. Because now your story has entered the room. Your depth has entered the room. Your spiritual weight has entered the room. And people who once thought this was simple are beginning to realize it is not simple at all. This connection carries consequence. That is why the energy around it has intensified. What was once hidden in quiet thoughts is now pressing toward a decision. What was once imagined privately is now being tested publicly, emotionally, spiritually. They cannot unknow what they know. They cannot return to the lighter version of you they carried before. They cannot pretend your soul is ordinary, and they cannot pretend their feelings are small. This is where the pressure begins. Not pressure from heaven to force love. Pressure from truth to reveal what love is made of. And beloved, the next thing they do will matter. Not because you are waiting helplessly, but because their next movement will show whether the proposal was born from impulse or devotion. If it was impulse, it will weaken under truth. If it was devotion, it will deepen. If it was fantasy, it will become confused. If it was destiny being matured, it will become more intentional. This is the season of proof. Quiet proof. Not loud declarations. Not empty promises. Not emotional words that vanish by morning. Proof in the way they seek clarity. Proof in the way they face their fear. Proof in the way they correct what they once mishandled. Proof in the way they stop treating access to you as something guaranteed. Proof in the way they understand that your heart is not a place to visit when they are lonely. It is a place to honor when they are ready. And beloved, heaven is asking you to watch without panic. Listen without chasing. Discern without hardening. Stay open, but stay anchored. Because something is still unfolding. You have not seen the final movement yet. The proposal was paused, but the story was not ended. The question was interrupted, but the heart behind it is still awake. The unexpected truth shook them, but it did not erase what was already growing. In fact, it may have revealed the true depth of what was growing all along. Because love that cannot survive truth was never safe. But love that becomes more reverent after truth may be preparing to cross a threshold. And there is a threshold here. A moment approaching where they will have to decide whether to remain silent or speak with a new kind of honesty. A moment where the people around them may no longer be able to influence what their soul already knows. A moment where they will look at the proposal they planned and realize it cannot be offered in the same way anymore. It must change. It must become more honest. It must carry an apology in its foundation. It must carry understanding in its timing. It must carry the humility of someone who has seen your depth and knows they are standing before something precious. Beloved, this is why you must not rush to conclusions. You are in the middle of a divine interruption. And divine interruptions often feel like confusion before they become clarity. They feel like doors closing before you realize a weaker door was being replaced by a stronger one. They feel like silence before the truth speaks louder than words. They feel like loss before protection reveals itself. They feel like waiting before destiny gathers the missing pieces. Right now, pieces are being gathered. A conversation from the past. A truth about you. A fear inside them. A memory of something they once said. A realization they cannot ignore. A person around them who knows more than they admit. A proposal that was almost spoken. And a future that has not yet been decided in the visible world. All of this is moving. And though you cannot see it, your spirit can feel it. That is why this message found you. Not to make you anxious. Not to make you stare at your phone. Not to make you chase signs. But to remind you that heaven sees the hidden process. Heaven sees the question that was almost asked. Heaven sees the truth that interrupted it. Heaven sees the person now wrestling with what they learned. And heaven sees you, sitting there with a heart that has been through enough, wondering whether love will finally come without confusion. Beloved, the answer is not finished yet, but the movement is real. And before part 1 closes, there is one more thing you must know. The unexpected thing they learned about you did not only make them pause, it made them afraid of losing you, because suddenly they understood something they had not understood before. Someone like you does not remain available forever to people who hesitate too long. Someone like you may be patient, but your soul is learning not to wait where it is not honored. Someone like you may love deeply, but heaven is teaching you to stop bleeding for uncertainty. And when that realization entered them, a fear rose in their chest. Not the fear of proposing. The fear that the moment they delayed might become the moment you finally outgrew waiting. That fear has now entered the story. And what they do with it will change everything. Because tonight, in a place you cannot see, they are closer than they have ever been to revealing what really happened before they paused. But the part that will shock you is this. The truth they learned about you came from someone who was never supposed to say anything at all.